Welcome to Wild Spirits Outdoors, the place for real hunting talk, tactics, and a few laughs. Now let's dive in with your host, Brad Dijon.
Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Wild Spirits Outdoors. If you're listening on the day of the drop, it is Tuesday, January 6th, I hope. We'll see if I get this thing out. It's already 9:05 p.m. on the 5th, and we just got our studio set up here in our beautiful Airbnb. So thank you guys for joining. I've got a special guest with me today. Everybody, this is Brandon Galati, the man, the myth, the legend. The one I've been talking about on a few episodes here. He is the one with dual citizenship to both Illinois and Wisconsin. He likes to hunt Wisconsin when he can hunt Illinois. I don't know what's wrong with him, but, you know, it is what it is. Wisconsin's a good place to practice anyway. So, Brandon, welcome in to the remote studio. I'm glad you joined.
Thank you so much, Brad. Happy to be here.
Yeah, that's
Happy to be on the show. It's funny to watch all the episodes and then finally be on the podcast.
Right? It's going to be cool, man. Yeah, we're going to have a good time, guys. So this is part 2 of the Ohio muzzleloader season for the 25-26 season. And if you follow along on social media, you'll know that, I personally had some mishaps on opening day. And then the next day, which you guys don't know about because we haven't talked about it, but we'll share a little bit about it today. Brandon got to join in on the mishaps on day 2. But while he was having mishaps on day 2, I finally watered my drought. So I got my first Ohio muzzleloader deer. And we'll talk a little bit about that story today. Super awesome. I'm super excited that I got it done. It was an awesome hunt. We'll dive into that, and we'll talk about, what happened on opening day, and then we'll talk about what adventures Brandon had, and then we'll talk about what happened today, because today was a hell of a day, if I may say so myself. Brandon, what do you think?
Legendary is definitely the only word I can think of to describe it.
Yeah, it was
pretty awesome.
Today was a fun day. No shots were fired, but we'll kind of tell you guys as we go what went on. So, again, thank you for joining. No updates. This should come out on Tuesday, but I do have to do editing. The Wi-Fi here at our Airbnb is not the fastest Wi-Fi in the world, so I'm going to do my best to get it edited tonight, get it uploaded for a release tomorrow. But we also have hunting to do, and that comes first and foremost. So, yeah, let's dive in. So we drove down January 2nd. We got in the day before season. Had a pretty uneventful drive-in, which is always good. Got here, got everything ready. Brandon got here about 2 hours later. We got ourselves situated, and we did a little bit of... Well, I did some scouting on the day before season open. I kind of went and checked some stuff out, checked some familiar haunts that I've been to before. And I was a little bit concerned because the particular creek bottom that I wanted to hunt, that I've hunted in the past and have had, some pretty incredible hunts in. I could tell that the creek at some point in time this year flooded. I don't know. I didn't check to see when it had happened, but I could definitely tell that and a massive amount of water had gone down that creek. So there was a lot of deadfall down in the creek. So I decided I wasn't going to kayak it. And when you got to camp, we talked about it. And I said, man, I'm just going to make the long walk in. And instead of going in, at dark still, I was going to wait till first light and make my way in there. So that's what I did. And as I kept working in towards the spot I wanted to go to, I could tell right off. I could tell this is not going to go the way I want it to. There was literally, and I put some pictures on Facebook. If you guys follow along on social media, there's like beach sand all through this bottom where it's usually just lush green grasses and different forbs down there. Creates a lot of really good feed for them and a lot of good browse, and that was just all buried. And then as I moved up in elevation, up into the ridges, it just looked to me like the deer that were in there were probably in there earlier this year, and they pretty much browsed anything they really wanted off of that ridge. And to me, it really looked like the deer just had moved on. There was no fresh sign anywhere in there. I did not find fresh droppings. I did not find fresh tracks. So I decided to back out of there. Brandon, you went to a different location
Yes.
to be named later Never.
Never.
We're in Southern Ohio. That's all you guys need to know. But so you went to a different location, which was about an hour drive from where we're at right now, right?
Yeah, it was a bit of a hike.
Right.
And it was an experience. Definitely worth I'd say worth the drive. Not, I mean, again, I gauge my success based on, what I learned. So being in a new tract of public land that I've never been before, never hunted Ohio, as you guys know from the last episode. It was just an entirely new experience. So it was very cool to see. And again, I'm used to Wisconsin and Illinois, which is a lot of plain country and ag country and just like a lot of flat land. And you have some hills and some ridges and stuff like that you think is big. But when you come to where I went, it was just like, sheer rock walls and stuff like that. Just like stuff that you just don't see in Wisconsin. So that was a whole different kind of ball game, and similar to what you were seeing on that first day, it was, seeing a lot of fresh sign on the the lower third of stuff, but it looked like a lot of like doe tracks and like little tracks and stuff like that. Nothing too big. There were some old rubs, and yeah, it wasn't until the second day was when I explored further up the ridge system, and finding out again that it was just a lot of old sign up top, and everything was actually fresh where I was at the first day.
Right.
But again, just to echo, what we talked about earlier today, not anywhere near the amount of sign or.
Yeah, today was wild, and I want to get into it right now, but I want to try to give you guys the timeline. So, when you went into your undisclosed location day one, did you run like Onyx and did you run a tracker?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you remember how far you went day one?
I think in total from like the different areas that I kind of punched in, probably was like encompassed about two miles
right on
total. But each stretch in was not even a mile, right? Like 0.75.
Right.
Because each time I would go in, again, I was facing these giant ridges and my wind, like I was telling you, I wasn't used to like, the predominant wind was supposed to be blowing down through these ridges, and like I was hoping to kick my scent back out, but it was just tunneling right where I was expecting deer to be. So I'm like, I don't want to go in any farther because I feel like I'm not going to see anything because everything just scent, getting scent blown out. So I was like, I just kept thinking, I'm like, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? Like, is the wind going to change? Like, why is it, I thought punching in farther would get that wind, like we discussed, to kick more out through those ridges, like a, blowing through a tube or something, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah. You had inconsistencies too, didn't you? You had a lot of swirling and.
Oh yeah, it would go like this way and then that way, and in the same spot. You wouldn't even move. It would be like, it would just switch up on you. All of a sudden, you'd be feeling it in your face, and then when I just had the wind at my back, so
yeah,
it was a challenge.
The joy of hill country.
Yeah,
and we had so day one we had like a northern wind, a northwest, I believe, right?
Yeah,
was what it was. That was the predominant.
It's supposed to be northeast.
Northeast. That's right. That's right. And then day two, the winds switched to a southwest.
Yeah,
and. So day two, you just put a lot of boot leather down and just worked through a lot of area, and
yeah,
you found some sign, but you never found anything that like got the spidey senses super tingling, right?
Not at all. Yeah, right. Bump that one buck,
Yep.
like we were talking about. I was actually texting you at the time. Was when you shot your deer, or I noticed that you had shot your deer. But anyways, it looked like it was like I was telling you, it's the spot. But not right now.
Right.
Like it was like you could see where it was just like ran through with rubs and scrapes like all along the tops of these ridges where they were just like setting checking does from the bottoms. So like if it was rut season, oh my God, like it would be somewhere to capitalize on. But right now it was all old sign. You know, even if it was just like a month or a few weeks, it was old.
Sure. So I kind of jumped ahead into just getting right into Ohio hunting, but just for the folks listening out there, tell us a little bit about how you, like, what got you into hunting? Like, when did you get going in it? What got you into it? And what's kind of driven you to keep pursuing it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess, because like I've told you, it wasn't like I had like my dad or my grandfather to take me out in the woods and show me like woodsmanship or any of that kind of stuff. It basically started with an airsoft gun when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and then working my way up to a pellet gun, and then I always just, I was a really good shot, and my dad got me a bow for like my 12th or 13th birthday. And I was really good at it. I whipped my arm one time, right? Taught me, don't straighten your arm and how to stand and position yourself to where that doesn't happen. And, I naturally picked up on it. I really enjoyed it. And then I thought, well, I'm good at this. Now what can I do with this?
Sure.
So, I was like, I've always loved the outdoors. I've been a big fisherman my whole life, So I was like, how do I expand my outdoorsmanship? And it was, hunting. So, with nobody to show me, it was a lot of YouTube videos, getting stuff like that until, meeting a few key players, obviously like you, have kind of taken me under your wing and give me a lot of information, insight, and stuff to bounce off of, where I'm like, hey man, I'm seeing this, and, I'm going through this, and, like, what do you make of this? And, it's starting to make sense of stuff. So. Right
on. So yeah, Brandon is, like, he might be fairly new to hunting, but outdoors is definitely a part of your life. I mean, fishing, you do all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, I just said I wasn't going to swear today, but I did anyway. But I mean, you've done snorkeling, you've done...
Oh yeah, scuba diving. I do, spear fishing. I've done, skydiving, obviously. Anything outdoors that you can imagine, like, I've done. And when it comes to, even hunting, like, I've tried... do a lot of upland game, pheasant hunting. That's been the easiest. I'm a part of a club in Wisconsin. And then turkey and deer have been like the other two that I've gotten into. And I'd love to try duck, but it's just like another hundreds of dollars I have to spend that, I'm just like, let me kill something first before I move on to my next venture.
Yeah, yeah. I've only gone waterfowl hunting a couple of times, but I was always afraid to like get into it because I had buddies who were hardcore deer hunters, and then they got into waterfowl hunting, and then they got a dog, and then next thing I know, they're like, they don't even bow hunt. They're not into deer anymore. They spend all their time chasing ducks and geese around, and I love to deer hunt, and I don't ever want to ruin that for myself, so I just refuse to do it, man. I just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
So Brandon is definitely an outdoors kind of guy, and Brandon and I met in 2020. I started working for the same company that he had already worked for, and we got along good right from the very beginning. We would talk about fishing, and then I would talk about hunting, and then he would tell me about, he was getting into hunting, and that was kind of what sparked our friendship besides work. And so about a year ago, roughly, Brandon took a position with a new company, but it's not like we were just work buddies. Like, I knew we would still always stay in touch, and we would continue to communicate. And we decided at some point in time we were actually going to try to go to Missouri for a September hunt this year. Mm-hmm. But then I went and screwed my arm up, so I couldn't go to Missouri to bow hunt. And as folks that listen to the podcast know, my brother-in-law and my buddy Steve typically come down here with me to Ohio, but both of them were either injured or rehabbing injuries, and they couldn't come. So now you know what you get to look forward to here in about 15, 16 years. When you hit 40, you're just going to be worried about injuring yourself and not being able to hunt. But so when they told me they couldn't come, I reached out to Brandon. I was like, hey man, I'm going regardless. I'm going to be down there. So I asked if he wanted to join, and I don't even think my message fully sent. But like, I think he just knew, and he was like, it was like this fast. As soon as that message went through, he's like, yeah, I'm coming. And so we've been planning it, and I told him the general area we were going to stay in, and I said, hey man, just start looking at public lands or private public access, anything that's open to public hunting within roughly an hour of where we're at. And he definitely did. I mean, he was sending me a lot of pins, and like I said in the last episode, he was sending me, like, you were sending me really good stuff. So when I go back, about a year ago when Brandon took his new job, I was actually over in Wisconsin for work. and it was during hunting season. It was either during or right before hunting season. I think it was during hunting season, wasn't
It
it?
was during.
Yeah, yeah. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, where you at?" And he was in Wisconsin hunting, and I'm like, well, I got some time to kill this evening. So he and I I don't know, we hit a lot of spots and just started working through all kinds of different terrain. And, we started picking some stuff apart, and I was going through some of the stuff that I was picking up in the area. And we found a couple pretty good spots.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you ran a couple trail cameras in a couple of those spots, and definitely saw some. I mean, there was some good deer in there. But to see, so prior to that, and I think that was, and this isn't a me patting myself on the back, but I do think that was kind of an eye-opening experience for you to see, the difference between just like, and this is how everybody is when they get into hunting. Like, you would go in as a new hunter, you would find what you thought was good deer sign, and you would try to set up, within shooting range of that deer sign. Same way I always did it. And then when you and I went in there, we started picking apart the thermal currents in these hubs, and then we found this super hub
with the balloon.
So I think it was Dan Infault. If you guys have ever watched any of Dan's videos, he always said, hey, if you find those airfoil balloons out in the woods anywhere, there's a good chance that a buck also found that place to be kind of in its core area, because it just happens to be an area that just pulls thermals in and pulls air currents in, and they just seem to settle in there, and bucks like those areas. So we found one of those, and I think you went in and you hunted it a few times, and you found out it was very difficult to hunt because the winds were just, because of the way that set up, you could get on deer, but oftentimes they would catch you before you were able to get them in range, right?
Yeah, so it's a super tricky area because just how the terrain lays out, and there's a deer that it's kind of like the gate guard to the entry of that area, and he's always sitting up there, and there's no way to get back on that ridge system in time to cut them off unless you're looking to camp out in the woods. So by the time you get back there, after I ran the trail cameras, they were heading in an hour before daylight or more, and they were coming out an hour or two after daylight. So they weren't there was 1 or 2 days that I would see deer in that hub that was just kind of mosey around chilling. But there was that one big buck that I jumped over that ridge when I got tired of sitting in that hub and not seeing anything, and went to peek over that ridge, and there was a buck bedded right on that thing. And again, it all adds up. When you start understanding, like you were saying, from the beginning of I was looking for deer, but I wasn't reading the woods.
Sure.
And I didn't understand that at the time, that there's more to see than just looking for deer, right? Again, I was telling you the other day, it's you're putting on a whole different lens when you're looking through the woods. And I was trying to put myself in that perspective. And since I've been able to see a lot more things.
Sure.
It was just it was we were in two different worlds. So it was definitely eye-opening. It was one of those things where, and let me just say this quick. If you ever get the opportunity to go on a hunt with Brad or go walk the woods with Brad, please take it, because it's worth it a million times over. That's why when I got that text, I don't think, like he said, it didn't even hit send before I had already responded. Because, I dropped everything I could to come on this trip. Because, dead deer or no dead deer, the amount of, again, education and learning value out of just the 3 days that we've been here is worth the whole trip. So.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. It's just a passion. I am so ate up with deer hunting, and like I've said before, I've got 3 girls. None of them are into hunting. I've got buddies that are into hunting, and then I've got buddies who are new to hunting. And part of the reason I started this podcast was just, like I've said, I'm not an expert deer hunter. I'm not a biologist when it comes to deer. I just have a passion for it. I've been doing it a long time. And if people listen and they pick up, if somebody picks up one thing in one podcast, that makes it worth my while. So I do appreciate that. So that kind of gives you a history of how Brandon and I got to meet each other, and then.
Oh, sorry, you can't forget the white water. Obviously, that's what made the bond.
That's
official.
what sealed the bond.
That's what sealed
That's
it.
right. So before we go any further into Ohio, guys, when was that? 22? I think it was 2022.
Yeah.
So our former boss, his name is also Brad, but we call him Triple B. So there's no confusion between he and I. But he invited Brandon, myself, and a couple other guys to go to the Gully River and go whitewater rafting in West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
So if you guys ever get a chance, Google Gully River whitewater rafting. It's like a 12-week long season, and basically they open this giant dam up and they just flood this river, and it's and we're not talking like, hey, look at me, I'm going down the river in a raft. We're talking, class 3, 4, and 5 rapids. In fact, I've got a shirt that has the whole map of the Gully River Rapids on it. And so Brandon and I, along with a couple other guys, we went on this trip together, and it was a blast. I mean, I had an absolute amazing time.
Yeah.
But Brandon and I did get a little bit cocky, so we're rocking this freaking river, and our guide is like freaking pumping our egos. He's like, dude, you're freaking killing it. Like, if I say, hard rate, you guys are doing, like, he's like, you guys are hitting everything perfect. He's like, so we're gonna take a little bit more of an aggressive route. So we hit some pretty insane stuff, and we had a freaking phenomenal time. And then we're watching people in other groups, and they're eating it. Their freaking rafts are getting flipped. We're picking people up. We're picking oars up. We're helping everybody get back together. And me and Brandon are like, dude, we got this. Like, this ain't nothing. Bring it on. So we're getting fired up, and we're getting more and more into it. And then, so for the first 4 hours, it was like class 3s, 4s, couple 5s. And then we actually pulled off the river and had lunch. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it wasn't until the last class 5.
That's right. That's right. So we eat lunch, then we get back in, and me and Brandon get in the very front of the raft because he's like, you guys should just go up front. It'll be a blast. You guys are doing good. So Brandon's on the right, I'm on the left, and we rocked the end of this freaking river out. And the very last class 5, as we're coming up to it, our guide is like, all right, guys, we're about to hit postage stamp falls, I think is what it was called, right?
Yeah, postage stamp falls or rock or something.
Something like that, yeah. So basically what it is the river drops like a 12-foot waterfall, and then it almost makes a 90-degree turn to the right. And our guide says there's 2 ways we can do this. We can either stay to the right, drop the waterfall, and then stay right, and the river kind of eddies out, and it's nice and calm. And he's like, or we can hit postage stamp rock, and we got to squeeze our raft through like a 12-foot wide gap. And he's like, the odds of hitting that gap are not good, but it can be done.
Yeah, he was pumping us up. He was like, you got this.
He's like, you guys got this. So we're like, yeah, dude, we ain't bitches. Like, we want the hard one. So we dropped off that waterfall, and he said as soon as we hit that water, we got to, as hard as we can, we got to turn that raft and get it turned 90 degrees so that the current will grab us, and we'll shoot the gap, as he said, between this postage stamp rock, which is like a 20-foot wide by 15-foot tall,
giant boulder.
Almost a giant square boulder in the middle of the river. Yeah. And then you've got this 12-foot gap, and then you've got this huge cliff coming up out of the river. Well, we did not make the right-hand turn quick enough, and we learned quickly why they call it postage stamp rock, because our freaking raft slammed into that freaking rock, flipped up on its side, and it pinned us like a postage stamp. And Brandon is standing on the raft, and he's like holding on, and then I am getting sucked into the water, and I've got a hold of Brandon's collar, and I'm like gonna take Brandon with me. And then I just remember him turning around, and he's like, hold on. And I just remember like in slow motion, like looking at him and being like, I don't want us both to die today, bro. And I just let go, and I got sucked in the gap, and I about drowned, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with everybody. I was in sheer panic mode. I got stuck. I got caught in a bunch of turbulence. And I finally just kind of came to the conclusion that my life was over. And then all of a sudden, I just saw my head pop out of the water, and there was a raft. And I just reached up, and somebody grabbed my arm and pulled me in the raft. And they're like cheering, like, "You guys freaking smashed the rock," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking everybody's dead. Like, I'm thinking I'm the lone survivor. But they pull me up in their freaking raft. I climb up on the rock, and I'm looking around for Brandon. I'm looking for the rest of my group. And then all of a sudden, I hear, "Oh my God, Brad, you're alive!" So Brandon actually was able to stay with the raft, and there's people standing up on the rock, and somebody helped pull him up on the rock. Our guide got up on the rock.
Yeah.
I shot the gap. I got up on the rock. The rest of our group was not so fortunate. Triple B got sucked down river, and I think we ended up picking him up over a quarter mile down river. But, so yeah, you had to be there to experience it, but it was like slow motion. I remember him turning around and looking at me and being like, "Hold on." And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I'm going to kill us both. And I just, it was epic. And then I just let go, and then to see his eyes when we both got up on that rock. So, yeah.
Yeah, like Brett said, you'd have to be there to understand, but like, it was one of those, like, I don't know what kind of bond you got to form, but like, almost dying together is a pretty serious
tight bond.
Because I'll never forget, because like the current's so heavy.
It's strong.
So as he's holding on, the water's like taking him under. So like, he's barely getting air, and I'm just like, what do we do? And he just looks at, as I said, hold on, he just like looks and lets go, and like he says, slow motion, just disappears into the white water. And I was just like, oh my God. And yeah, when I saw you, when I was on the rock and I saw you, I was like, it was like a come to Jesus moment. I can't believe it. It was crazy.
It's like cliffhanger when you're like barely holding onto the rock in the movie, and then you're just like falling down the freaking cliff. That's how I felt. But no, that was like, it's like, all right, we're brothers now.
Yeah.
You know, we almost died together, so we're brothers. But so yeah, that really solidified the bond, and it was a good time.
100%. Never forget. West Virginia.
So yeah, so now let's get back into Ohio, because that's what the whole episode's supposed to be about. So day 2, I decided, well, let me back up to day 1. After I pulled out of that spot that I was in, I went to a new spot. It's a spot I've been into and scouted before, but I've never hunted it before. And I hadn't been in there, I think 2 years ago was the last time I was in there. But I went in there and I scouted my way in, and things looked pretty good in there. I felt like it was a spot where my best chances in there were I was going to have to get in there well before daylight, get to the spot, get set up well before daylight, and I honestly figured my best chance at killing a deer in there was going to be in the morning. I was going to catch deer coming likely off from private, working their way down into public, and then working their way up onto a south-facing slope and bedding up in there. So I figured the only real good chance I had at killing a deer in there was getting in there well before daylight. So I decided I was going to go in there and get all my stuff set up, and I would hunt it that night just to hunt it, basically, because I was in there, and then I'd go back the next morning and I would hunt it all day. So I worked my way in there, and I got into where I wanted to be, and I dropped down into this cut, and then I followed that cut down into a creek bottom, and the creek bottom's got like 6 foot, 8 foot, whatever, tall banks. So down in the creek bottom, which was pretty much dry, there was a little bit of water rolling through it, but nothing crazy. I was completely hidden. Nothing could see me, and I'm like, this is perfect. Drop into the creek. I'll work the creek until I get to where I want to be. I'll pop out of the creek. I'll set my stuff up. I'll drop back in the creek tonight, get out of here. Nothing will be none the wiser I was ever in here. Except when I got to the spot and I went to crawl up out of the creek, I lost my balance. I slid back down. I went backwards, and I landed on my freaking muzzleloader. And I bent the tube on my vortex scope. So yeah, my tube was a little kinky, and it's not going to work well for hunting. So that screwed my opening night up. Obviously, I could not, and it screwed my opening morning up because by the time that had happened, I knew I was never going to be able to get a new scope, get it bore sighted, get all the way to the closest shooting range so that I could shoot it and make sure I was sighted in all that night. So I knew my morning was going to be screwed. But I tried to keep a positive attitude. You know, these things happen. It's my own fault. I should have been paying better attention to what I was doing. Thankfully, I was able to get out of there. I was able to get back, drive to town, go to a store. Thankfully, that store carried Vortex scopes. I picked up a new scope, mounted it, bore sighted it. Then day 2 of the season, that morning, you took off for your spot. I took off for the shooting range. I went, got my gun zeroed in, and then I decided, kind of on a whim, I was like, I don't really want to go into that spot that I planned on going this morning because I don't think I'm going to see anything. I really think I got to be there in the morning. Plus, the wind had switched, and the wind was actually going to be pulling my scent up into where I thought these deer were probably bedding at. So I didn't want to just go in and burn that spot up. So I decided to go to a spot that I've never been to. I put some pins on some maps. I've just never made it to this spot. And I decided just, you know what, I'm just going to go in there. So that's what I did. I drove all the way down in there, parked the truck, got all my gear on. Definitely did not look like there'd been any, there was no fresh tire tracks in there. So I felt like, all right, at least if nothing else, I should be in some land that hasn't had a whole lot of human pressure in a while. Excuse me. But then when I got in there, it was about 0.6 of a mile from the truck to where I wanted to dive in and start working these ridges. And this is pretty ridgy country where we're at here. Some pretty good elevation changes. There's a creek that runs through it. And as I worked my way in there, as soon as I kind of cut into the first ridge system, as soon as I got in the woods, like my spidey senses just started tingling. I'm like, man, I just feel like there's deer in here and they're close. So I started putting on the super stealth mode and I was like creeping, just creeping. And guys, I didn't even make it 100 yards actually into the ridge system. And I caught movement about 50 yards in front of me. And it's pretty brushy in there. You know now because you and I went back in there today and we went in deeper, but it's pretty brushy in there. But I saw movement and then I picked up an ear flick and I was like, oh, there's a deer. I could see the deer through the brush and then it picked its head up and I was looking at a nice 8-point. Nothing monstrous, but I mean, a deer I'd have been more than happy to shoot, whether I was in Michigan or Ohio. That would have been a very, very good deer for me, and I would have been more than happy to take it. And I don't have a shot at it, even though it's only, I think at this point in time, it's definitely less than 50. It's probably like 45 yards. But it's through a bunch of brush and some deadfall, and I just don't have a shot. But I'm watching him, and there's a big tree about, 10 yards in front of me, between me and the deer. And I'm watching this buck work his way in, and he picks his head up again, and I've got like one of those Primo shooting stick bipods, and I've got my gun up on that, but I just don't have a shot, so I'm just kind of watching him. But I'm like, this is going to happen. Like, there's no way it's not. This deer has no clue I'm here. It's in here feeding on, I don't even know what that stuff was. It's not clover, but it kind of looked like clover.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do some research and find out what that is, because whatever it is, if I see it in other places now, I'll know to pay very close attention to it, because they were hammering whatever it was. But, so he's working his way towards that tree, and I almost thought I had a shot, so I slowly took a step to the right as he was coming up to the tree, but I didn't have the shot. And then the deer walked behind the tree, so I took a step back and got ready on the other side of the tree, and he popped out. Head was down in some brush. He walked out. Boom, I shot. Smoke, because the thermals were pulling my scent right past me, so the smoke immediately went behind me, which was great. And I watched the deer drop. I mean, right there, boom. And I'm like, yeah. And then, like not even a half a second later, I see a deer again. And I'm like, I'm looking and I'm like, that's the deer I just shot. But that's not the deer I just shot. And then the deer that I thought I just shot took off running down into the ridge system and, took off on out of there. So I'm like, what the heck just happened? And I walked down there and, I'm not ashamed of it, guys. I'm super stoked with this deer, but I shot a 6-point that was with the 8-point, but I never saw the 6-point because he was feeding behind that tree. And when the 8-point walked behind the tree, the 6-point walked out from behind the tree, and I never put 2 and 2 together that there was going to be 2 deer right there. So, I'm happy. I put a great shot on it. I didn't have to track it. It dropped right in its tracks, but it wasn't the deer I intended it to be. But everything happens for a reason. It was a phenomenal hunt. I've been coming down here for 8 years, and I've had plenty of opportunities to shoot deer. I don't want to make this sound like, for 8 years I've been coming to Ohio and I never get a chance. I've passed a lot of deer down here. I've passed a lot of deer the size of the one that I shot this year. But it didn't make it any less special to me. Just the way that everything worked out. It's always fun when you go into a place you've never been, never stepped foot in it. And I'm thinking I have a whole day ahead of me to work my way through this ridge system, and I don't even make it. I was almost 7/10 of a mile from the truck, but I was only like 100 yards into the first ridge system that I really wanted to get into. And so dropped him right there. I did a quick video, was super happy. Great body on this deer. I mean, for a 2.5-year-old deer, he was a solid deer. When I got him back to camp and dressed him out and skinned him, he weighed 132 pounds hanging. So, I mean, not a monster deer, but a lot of good meat on a 132-pound hanging deer. So, very happy about that. Now, when we first got down here on January 2nd, we were kind of talking strategy, and I asked Brandon, I'm like, hey, do you have knives with you? Because if you're going to go way into some of these ridge systems where you're going, if you shoot one, you might have to like cape and quarter to get it out of there. And Brandon goes, man, you're always talking about caping and quartering deer, and I don't know why you don't just throw that thing over your shoulders and fire them and carry it out of there like a man. And I was like, oh, all right. So my hope is, and I did this for a reason, guys, I'm really hoping Brandon shoots a deer this week, and we'll talk about today and what we're going to do tomorrow. And I really do think he has a great chance because we almost closed the deal multiple times today. But just out of spite, I was like, I can carry a 2.5-year-old buck, fireman style, almost 3/4 of a mile out of here to my truck. So damn it if I didn't do it. Now, when I got to my truck, I was almost dying. I was wheezing. I was... but I made it. So, and I even took pictures of that dang thing strapped over my shoulders so that he knew I wasn't just making it up. But, so when he does shoot one, I hope we're 4 miles in, and I'm going to be like, well, you at least got to carry it over your shoulders 3/4 of a mile, because you are, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
28.
All right, so Brandon's almost 15 years younger than me. So if I can do 3/4 of a mile, I feel like he can do a mile. So no matter how far in you shoot, if you only shoot it 100 yards from the truck, I'm still making you carry that bitch a mile, dude. So no, it was a great hunt. It was fun, and I fell in love with this spot, and
For a good reason.
Brandon got back to camp that night, and I'm like, hey man, how was your night? And he told me, and it's not like he wasn't in a good spot. I think with some time, especially if you had opportunity to go in that spot, maybe not during season, but just to really put boot leather down and really scout through it, you might find some stuff quicker. But when you're coming down on a hunt like this, you got 5 days. I mean, you got to make it happen in 5 days, and that's, we don't live anywhere around here. I mean, it's a 7-hour drive for both of us to get here, so it's not like we can just hop in the car and take a couple-hour drive and go scout anytime we want. It takes some doing and some planning just to get down here to hunt it. So what I said to Brandon, I was like, hey man, if you want, I would, and I didn't want to make it sound like, hey, let's go do what I want to do. Because I knew he wanted to go exploring where he was at. And I said, hey, if you want to go tomorrow, I would love for you to come into the area that I shot my deer. Because I'm like, I didn't even scratch the surface of where I was trying to get to. And I'm like, I just think it's going to be a phenomenal place. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So I'm like, awesome. So I'm going to kind of let you kind of break down how today started and what we got into. And then I'll kind of fill in the blanks here and there as we go, as the seasoned elder who was just kind of there for fun and to try to help kind of work through the system. I wanted you to kind of work through the system, but I wanted to try to work you through the system the way I would work through that system, if that makes sense. And guys, again, I'm not just doing this to pat him on the back, but you did a phenomenal job today. I mean, for those that hunt by themselves, it's one thing to be quiet when you're by yourself. But when there's two people, it's double the footprints, it's double the footsteps, it's double the slips on rocks, it's double the getting snagged, it's double the scent that's being dispersed. It makes things more challenging. But you rose to the occasion today, so kind of break down for folks what we did today.
Yeah. Well, and real quick, too, I forgot to mention yesterday my scope mishap.
Oh, yes. Let's get into that.
Similar to you, I didn't fall on my scope, though. I must have, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I must have, there were several times, like, because of how high those ridges are, where I just had to, like, lean on something to cool off, because, like, my body heat was just going through the roof.
Right.
So I would, like, lean on something, like a tree usually, and cool off, and I don't know if I leaned on my scope or what, and that thing's usually pretty darn rock solid, obviously, but I'll tell you what, yeah, when I got to the spot that I was like, all right, I'm just sit the rest of the day here until it starts getting dust light and then work my way back out. I like go to sit down, like put my gun on my knee, and I feel like movement wobble. Yeah. I'm like, what was that? So, and sure enough, my scope, my actual, the mounting was loose.
Yeah, the rail that the scope mounts, yeah.
So it was, moving, and I'm, in my head, I'm sitting there thinking, like, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, if I just hold the scope down, I could maybe, but then it was like 10, 20 minutes go by, I'm like, no, this isn't a good idea. I'm like, I need to get the heck out of here. So I got up and, worked the 2 hours it was.
Yeah.
Like, heck. But anyways, so that's how that day ended up going on the top of the ridge system. Like I said, a bunch of old stuff.
I was going to mention that too, and I forgot. So yeah, your scope came loose.
Yeah.
So when you got back last night, we took your scope off, tightened the rail down. Mm-hmm. We lined your scope up, like we used a Sharpie to make sure everything went back exactly where it was. But we were like, we love these animals. We don't want to just assume anything.
Right.
So we went back to the same shooting range that I went to earlier. Yeah, that was last night. We busted over there right before dark.
Yeah, before dark last night.
And we get there and there's like 4 people that are shooting. We're like, what the heck's going on? Like, anyway, so we did. Yeah. And we did a good job remounting it. We were only
2 shots,
like 3.5 inches off from, perfect up and down, 3.5 inches left. We made a few clicks, shot again, money, good to go. Yeah. So
it was good.
So yeah. So now fast forward to this morning.
Fast forward, yes, to this morning. So going into it, I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of like, and I'd never, other than the time that we like scouted together. Again, no weapon in hand. So first time I ever like hunted with someone. So it was just like I didn't know what to expect. I knew that you had seen a little bit of the area, but had never been like through where we wanted to go. And there was a lot of unknowns. Again, we didn't know if we'd be able to cross that body of water or not. And for a point there, we thought we were going to have to turn around and get to the truck and go to the other side. But luckily, we found an area where we could get past. But anyways, so we show up. And, without giving like just too many descriptive details, it was one of those areas. It's like a hidden, like, it's when you're driving there, you're like, where the heck are we? Like, there's no way this is like, you're telling me a car could be coming up this way right now, like kind of roads, where it's just like very, very rural, very back, dirt road type thing. So,
and to kind of just real quick to kind of come off of what you just said. I've seen this spot for at least 6 years. I've seen that spot. And I never gave it the time of day. I literally threw 2 pins on it years ago, and I've never taken the time to go down there. Not because it didn't look good, but it just didn't have that, like, when I looked at it on a map, it was not like something drew me to it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, to me it is kind of like a hidden gem, because I think a lot of other people might do the same thing, because there's some bigger name, bigger forest areas in this general area that most people are very familiar with, and when they think of Southern Ohio, that's where they're thinking to go. And this one just kind of was a little blip on the radar. So anyway, I'm going to shut up and let you go. I'm going to crack my high noon open.
There you go. Yeah, no, so, we get out there. Again, my thought was I don't want to, me being the grasshopper and you being the sensei in that type of terminology. I was, being very mindful of, like, I don't want to ruin this for us kind of thing. So I was being extra careful. I was, I had to move slower than you at times. Like, you were able to move a lot faster at some points, so I had to, like, catch up at some points. But it kind of worked to our advantage at some points.
It did, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So, we worked our way back, and again, I didn't know what to expect or see, and again, when I don't even know where to start. There's so many.
Well, first of all, we weren't even 50 yards from where I shot my deer
before
we saw our first deer.
Right. Yeah, same spot. And again, like, I've hunted a lot. This is going on my 5th year, and I've hunted, like, as much as I can. If I can be in the woods, I'm in the woods. So I've hunted a lot, and I've found like the sweet spots. Like, this past season, like, I found a spot that I'm definitely going back to.
You were on it this year. Yeah. I saw a tremendous growth in your map. Your map reading, for sure.
Yeah, and it made a difference, right? So, but even in those scenarios, like in that scenario, it's like I have never seen that much deer sign concentrated in one area. Like, it just didn't make any sense. Like, it was like, you think like, oh, X marks the dot, like, intersecting trails. Where there's intersecting trails everywhere.
And we're not talking little faint trails. These are like cattle freaking beaten in trails.
Oh, yeah. Like, you could see them on LiDAR type thing. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. So, and, again, me still being younger, it was like, I was, thinking to myself, I'm like, to me, this is the spot. Like, you don't even need to go any farther. Like, this is, like, there is so much deer activity here, fresh deer activity, not old. Like, we're talking
poop that still has the green tint to it. I mean, that's how fresh it is. Yeah, steaming Willie beaming, man.
Still steaming, so it was ridiculous. So, I mean, at that point in time, I was sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like, talking about Spidey sense.
What the hell's he doing?
Yeah, why do you want to keep going? Like, and so, but I was in it for the ride. I was like, you know what? I was like, have faith, and
let's do it, ride or die.
Thank God we did,
dude.
Because wow, it was like, just, again, legendary. So, right, we see that first deer was it was 2 does or something?
I think it was 2 does.
First, up, like, feeding on that ridge, and they bounded up. They didn't even go that far. We were wondering if they crossed the creek or where they had went. They kind of, like, disappeared from us. And, we took some time and then, continued to work down where we were hoping to cross the river. Got up to, again, crossing so much deer sign that it would make anybody's nose bleed. I mean, they would literally, you would just freeze in your feet and just be like, I don't want to take another step, because I just felt like there was deer like 360 all around me. So, anyways, but we press on. And as we pressed on, we came up to that, like, as it was coming down into that creek.
Yeah.
And all we heard was just, like, rushing water. We're like,
the water was cranking, and I'm trying to look through the trees in my binoculars, and I'm wearing, like, hunting hiking boots. You were wearing your knee-high rubber boots. Yeah. I have on, they're good waterproof boots, but they're only, 8-inch boots. So I'm looking at it through my binos, and I'm like, I look at you and I'm like, man, I don't think we're crossing that. And we did bring our waders with us. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at it through my binoculars. I'm like, I don't even think we can get across that in waders.
Yeah.
And kudos to you, because I was ready to bail, get in the truck, and we were going to drive all the way around and see if we could come in and access from the other side. And you were like, you're like, do you see that down in there? It looks like some riprap, like where you can see rocks in the water. And you're like, we might be able to get across right there. And I'm like, hey, man,
It's worth a shot.
if you want to waste our time and walk all the way down this hill, I'll go with you.
Yeah.
But you were right. I mean, we got down there and it was like, dude, we can get across here.
Yeah,
So that was awesome.
There was like one area you could make it.
But it
across.
worked.
Yeah, you know.
But it worked.
And we made it. So, and then I'm trying to think. So that was when, so we started working up that island.
There's like an island in the middle of this
between two
creek.
Yeah, two creeks.
And this is a pretty good sized creek. It's not like a little 10-footer. It's about, 50 feet wide?
Yeah, I mean, maybe even
a little more. Yeah, 80 feet.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
So when we got up that middle island and we were kind of, it was funny, you made that key adjustment because we were going to go up on that higher elevation. You were like, actually, let's stick to the bottom. Let's pop up. Every time you see that next deadfall, we'll pop up, we'll look over, and then we'll go to that next deadfall, we'll pop up, we'll look over and see where that bench system runs on the bottom of the ridge. And as we're you stop to check your phone.
I'm over here looking at maps.
Yeah, and I feel like eyes burning in the back of my head, and I go like this. I turn around, and there's a doe just staring right at me, just looking just broad, open, right where we were just walking.
Guys, we had just crossed the creek. We popped up. We were gonna pop up onto the first bench, and like Brandon said, I was like, man, let's stay down in this bottom in the creek. There's like an overflow of the creek, but it's all dried out. And I'm like, if we stay down in here, we'll pop up. So we only walked maybe 20 yards in from where we had just crossed the creek.
Out of the water, yeah.
I'm looking at Onyx on my phone. I got my back to Brandon. And then it gets super quiet. Brandon was whispering to me, and not to be a dick, but I wasn't super listening to what you were saying. I know you were talking about where we were going, and I was just kind of yep. And I'm looking at my maps, and all of a sudden I'm like, he's not talking at all anymore, and he's not moving. So I slowly turn my head around, and he's like, deer, right there. And I turn and I look, and Brandon's about from me to you, away from me. And I look right over his right shoulder, and there's a doe literally standing 20 yards behind him, right where we just crossed the creek. I mean, she's standing probably in our boot tracks.
Right.
Staring right at us. And I'm like, don't move. And he's like, obviously, dumbass, I'm not moving. He's still got his finger. So I'm like, just don't move. And I'm just waiting for the snort, right? And then all of a sudden, she's just like, those are weird looking trees. And she's just like, whatever. And she just starts walking right towards us, but not at us, but she's going to walk next to us. And I'm like, there's another one.
20 yards behind you.
There's another one.
Don't move.
And I'm like, don't move. Because they're at this point, the first one's 12 yards from us.
Yeah.
And she's walking parallel to the creek. And they just keep coming. 9 does walk within 12 yards of us, and I'm just waiting for them to blow. I'm waiting for them to take off running.
And our wind was supposed to be kicking back that way.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. There must have been either they just didn't care, or the wind was picking up in elevation enough where it was going over them. I don't know. But I'm looking at Brandon. I can see in his eyes he's wanting to shoot. And I'm like, don't shoot. We just got in here.
Yeah, we just got.
And I mean, it'd be cool, but let's work in. So you're like, all right. So we just kind of let them go, and they just worked their way on past us, and then they crossed the creek literally
where we crossed.
Where you crossed.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't cross there. I had to go farther up to get across because I had my little booties on. But so we let them go. They crossed the creek, went right up where we were just at. And then I think you were kind of in your mind thinking, let's find a spot right in here to set up on this crossing.
Right.
But we're like, nah, let's keep pressing on. So I'll let you continue now. So we pressed on from there.
Yeah, so, right, we see that, and big body deer. Like, this weren't small does. Like, that one that was standing right where we were at was a big doe. I mean, big doe.
Yeah, there's some fatties down here, man.
Yeah, so, I was happy. Again, I'm happy with anything. I don't need antlers to be, smiling from ear to ear. So, anyways, but yeah, so we just got in there, and we had, again, seen so much already. I was like, okay, if we could, like, I'm okay with continuing on, because at this point, you don't know what's coming next. So
that's 11 deer, guys, already. And we're
0.3
miles in.
Yeah, it was just insane. It was just, yeah. So, and then we, continued to, this is when the Blow City started. This is definitely when Blow City started. Those 9 deer did not recognize that we were people, as amazingly as that was. So we didn't spook any of them, but when we started going, we worked our way down the bottom a little bit. I don't know, what was it? Was it the first... Do we peak up when they started blowing, or was that when we actually got up on that elevation, when we had that first crack of the two sides?
So it was the second time we peaked up, because the first time we peaked up,
Nothing.
Guys, it's thick in there. Like, in that bottom, trying to see up into this ridge is no joke. It's
a wall.
From where we're at up to the top, it's 438 feet. I know for a fact, because we scaled it eventually. But yeah, it's 440 feet from the bottom that we're at to the very top of this ridge. And we're trying to look up. We're trying to stay in this bottom and just pop out of this creek bed. And then we're going to try to glass these ridges. And anywhere there's a bench, hopefully we'll see deer bedded. But the first time we popped out, whoops, I hit my mic. First time we popped out, you couldn't see. And then we dropped down, we moved to the next one, we popped out, still couldn't see. And then we were looking down the creek bed, and it was starting to get a lot of deadfall, and it was getting pretty thick. But then we saw a very obvious bench,
Right.
like on the upper third. So that's when we decided we were going to pop out, and we're going to start working this first level, watching that upper third bench. That's when Blow City started.
Yeah, that's when it happened. That's when the party started.
That's when things got spicy.
Yeah. So again, and as Brad mentioned, you can't really see, like, unless you have, 3 decades of experience of looking at deer. There's birch trees. There's so many different colored trees, and like white light colored trees that, like, and dark browns, leaves. You name it. There was so many colors of a deer in the woods that, like, it, and so much.
It's almost like God knew what he was doing when he made him that color, right?
Yeah, so it's like it was impossible to see, really. Like, you'd have to pick up movement. I'd have to pick up movement. But you had seen some stuff up the ridge. But anyways, yeah, when we'd come up on that first bench, it was, over here, boom, boom, and then it wasn't even like a blow and then it was just constantly, and I'm just like 3, like 3 off over here, all right, 2 off over here. Now they're just pinging off of each other.
Yeah, but they're not going anywhere.
But
they're just sitting there blowing. So I'm like, well, if they're just going to sit there and blow, let me, hit the grunt tube a couple times and see if that'll at least, because there was no way they winded us. I mean, we were throwing milkweed. The milkweed was sucking back
into that body.
Yeah, we weren't getting winded, but they could definitely hear us. They might have been able to see us from their elevation down looking at us. I don't know if they saw us. They could definitely hear us. I mean, once you get out of that bottom, we're talking leaves that are huge. I mean, great big leaves, and they're very dry. There was no moisture. So we were still being quiet. It's not like we were just tromping through the woods, but we were definitely making noise. And like we said, there's 2 of us. That doubles the amount of noise. But so yeah, these deer are blowing, but they're not going anywhere.
Right.
And then we start actually seeing the deer that are blowing.
Yeah.
The first 2 we saw were the does, right?
Yeah, that went up towards the point.
Before they blew, so I'm going to try to piece this back together, make sure it makes sense to me. Before those 2 blew, we had one, which would have been kind of southwest of us, up on that south-facing slope.
Right.
Blew like a couple times, but then stopped blowing.
Right.
And then I swore I heard it working its way
down the river,
kind of down and away from us. So I'm thinking that deer's out of our life. Let's just keep trucking. And then all of a sudden these 2 blew.
Yep.
And then we're watching those, and then this one blew again.
Yeah.
but it was in the same spot.
Right.
So whatever I heard was either a squirrel or a different deer just walked out of there.
Yeah.
But then what happened?
Well, yeah, and then you used the grunt tube. You would give me the shooting stick, so I'm sitting there and I'm, I'd seen the things, tail feather going through the woods. So I'm.
So the shooting stick's going like this.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, you're not kidding. So that's exactly how that was going. And then, so you use the grunt tube, and I'm like aiming this way, and then sure enough, like we heard like two kind of like crunching or blowing over here, and then all of a sudden we heard, like I thought I heard something to the left of us, and then I don't know, it was like not even, I start working my way up to that bench to the top to shoot that one that I had seen up on the ridge that was blowing us. And then all of a sudden, as I'm, at 20 yards from you, you're going, deer, 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 like going like this. Sure enough, the 5 like does or something, 5 or 6, I don't know how
It
many.
was 4 does.
And 1 button buck.
And a button buck.
Yeah.
Came from the bottoms, shooting right up to us, 40 yards past me. I mean, they stopped 40 yards from me, but now Brandon's 20 yards ahead of me. I'm sitting here like, I could shoot you, I could shoot you, I could shoot you. Well, from 20 yards up, he's looking back down into he can't see them. He can only see bits and pieces of them as they're moving. So.
Yeah. So I couldn't see them then. And then I positioned myself where they were going to be. And sure enough, like I aim that way, there's a giant falling over tree, and they go right behind the tree.
Yep.
So it was like, okay, so I can't do this. So then I aim up past the tree, up the ridge, thinking, okay, if they make a break up this ridge, they're dead.
Yep.
I was like, this is it.
And I thought that's what they were going to do.
I was hoping.
But just like deer do, instead of doing what we thought, they just turned and they went the opposite direction and out of our lives.
Yeah, so then that was the end of those guys. Sayonara. So... And that wasn't the end of our deer experiences for the day, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So I'm trying to think. So that happens, then that was when we started working up the ridge.
Yes.
Right? So then we were like, okay, we were coming up to this point. We're like, if we can make it up to the other side of the ridge. The sun had shifted over the other side of the ridge, so we're like, there's going to be hopefully deer feeding on the other side or back side. So we work our way up. And this is like, even though we're going at an angle, it was ridiculously steep. Yeah, and mud. So it's like you think you got a foothold, like you're on leaves, and all of a sudden it would just kick out from underneath. Yeah. And then by the time we get up to the top of the ridge, our like boots are just like caked. Yeah. So anyway, we got up to there. When was the next time? It was it the 2 deer that came at us was the next deer interaction?
No,
it wasn't.
So.
Oh, that's when, you were...
It wasn't 5 minutes after those deer left our lives. I got up to the level you were at, and then we were going to start working our way. And then our old buddy, the two B words, were still right there blowing. And then all of a sudden, the one that blew before these 4 came, blew again.
Right.
And I'm starting to look over here again, and then all of a sudden, I saw the deer that was up there blowing. It was about 120 yards up the ridge.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a nice buck. It was like a nice, I couldn't count points, but he was well outside of his ears, and I thought he was an 8-point. So I'm like, you're right in front of me. You're kind of looking where the does were blowing. I'm looking over here, and I'm like, Brandon, big buck, right there. So I can see the thing clear as day, and I'm trying to pull Brandon to get him in position where I'm at. And I'm watching this deer. This deer knows we're there. I mean, it's looking right at me. But it's so far up this ridge, it feels at least like it's safe for now. And he's just standing there. I mean, picture perfect, quartering away from us, 120 yards up a ridge. And I'm like, Brandon, right there. And I'm not dogging on you because it's tough to see. Like, the only reason I could see it is because I saw its tail flick. And then when its tail flicked, I was able to piece the rest of its body together. And then I was like, oh, it's like right there in the wide open. There's this like big oak tree.
Not wide open. Let's
Well, to me, to where the deer was wide open. Like I could have shot that deer through a wide open gap up to it, but definitely not wide open. This is not like, a wide open mountainside by any means. But there's this big oak tree that's got a split in it, and I'm trying to tell Brandon, I'm like, you see that oak with a split, the big one?
right.
And you're like, yeah. I'm like, it's right between the split. And if you keep looking up that split, there's a dead, like, tan tree that's leaning this way. And you're like, where? And I'm like, just keep following the split. Do you see the tan tree? Yeah, I see it. And I'm like, he's right underneath that tan tree. And I'm literally standing right behind him, and I'm watching his gun, and I'm like, watching his, like, where his barrel's pointing. I'm like, yeah, right there. And you're like, I don't see it. And I'm like, maybe up a little bit. Yeah, right there. You're like, I don't see it. And I'm like, I'm going nuts because I'm like, I know this deer's going to take off eventually. And I'm trying so hard to get him on it. And then all of a sudden he's looking, and then I watch the barrel like go to the left, and I'm like, no, back to the right. Yeah, right there. No, back to the left. And it was tough. I mean, like I said, with the deer not moving, it was almost impossible to see unless you already knew where it was standing. Yeah. And I had, because I saw its tail flick. So it gave us, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds it stood there before it was like, all right, enough of you guys. And it just looked like a freaking mountain goat, dude, straight up that ridge like it was nothing. And then that one was definitely out of our lives. But then we only made it like 15 more feet, and the two old biddies over here are still standing there. And this time they didn't blow, but they like took a couple bounds. Mm-hmm. So you were trying to get on them. They weren't having it. They didn't stick around long enough, and then they worked their way all the way up over the top.
Right.
So then we moved up to the level they were at. I was like, all right, all these deer are at this level or higher is where we're seeing all these deer. So let's get up there, and we'll work our way around the point. So from there, that's what we did.
Yeah. And real quick, I'd just like to reiterate, when he says, like, just put this into perspective, guys. He says 120 yards up a wall of a stem count that, like, you just, I mean, like, it was just, there was no, everything was trees. So when he's saying, yeah, look through the split of this tree as it's, again, buried by other trees, and then another fallen tree, which again is encompassed by hundreds of other trees. So anyways, yeah, I was not able to see it, but I'll tell you what, if I had of, based on Brad's perspective, yeah, that would have been a good deer.
Yeah, for sure.
But so we work our way up. I'm trying to remember, I think this was you on the phone again, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So again, yeah, Brad, you were in front of me at this point in time. I think you were checking Onyx or whatever.
Yep.
And I'm looking, and there's I guess maybe a buck, but
we're pretty sure it was a shed buck.
Yeah.
I mean, the body on this thing was a freaking tank of a deer.
Yeah. So really big, but and again, no blow, no nothing, no sound. Just all of a sudden, this deer just was like, I don't like how close these guys are getting, because we were close. Like 20,
25 maybe.
Yeah.
At the max.
It was really, really close. So it just got up and started bounding off, and I smacked Brad.
I get. And I hear da-doof, da-doof, and I turn around and I'm like, all I saw was a big giant ass bounding. I'm like, that's a big deer.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so that was definitely most likely a buck bedded. But so we came across that, and then it was, help me out here. So the next interaction we had,
that one bounded off, and I was like, come on. And we kind of took off running about 40 yards because I was hoping it would drop down and come up the next ridge and stop, and we could at least get eyes on it again. But it didn't. So then I was like, well, let's go back and see where it was bedded. Mm-hmm. We couldn't find the bed. I kind of got turned around a little bit. I wasn't exactly sure where it was bedded, but we definitely know it was very close to where we were. We found a rub, guys, that like the size of my thigh. And I know rubs don't always tell you the picture of the size of the deer, but when you could actually see this rub in person, and you could see how high up the tree the tine marks were, how deep the tine gouges were, this wasn't a little deer that made this rub, and it was like a hemlock tree, and it just had that thing shredded. And then there was just tons of rubs in that area, so definitely kind of that marquee lookout post bedding area that you like picture when you think of hunting hill country and where you expect to find a buck bedded is where this was bedded.
Yeah.
So then we decided we've made it to the top of this point. And actually, no, I wasn't looking at onyx. Because for some strange reason, in the middle of this ridge, out in the middle of freaking nowhere,
Oh, the stone wall.
no houses or no human anything around, there's this archaic like stone wall built on this ridge. So I'm getting my phone out to take a picture of this because anytime I see shit like that, I'm always like, I wonder why they built that. I wonder who built it. I wonder what the reasoning for it was. And I'm like, I got to get a picture of this. So I'm actually taking a picture when Brandon smacks me in the back and goes, deer. And that deer was right behind us. But so anyway, so yeah, we worked our way back in there. And then, so now we've hit the top of this ridge and now we're looking. And at this point in time, I think it was, and it's not like we did this in, 10 minutes, guys.
Oh, no.
We were on this ridge system for 8 hours today. And I think it was 2:00 in the afternoon was when we blew that, I think, shed buck.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2 p.m. So I'm looking at the time and I'm like, all right, to get back out of here, I'm like, let's work our way down this point because there's like this giant CRP field. Mm-hmm. It's not CRP, but essentially the same thing. Yeah. There's a lot of small stem trees and just, it looks beautiful. Mm-hmm. And this point works its way down to it. So we start working down that. And then as we're working, and like I said, he's picking things up in the woods now, so we're walking, and I'm not even paying attention to this, and all of a sudden, I walk right past it, and Brandon's like, look at this scrape, dude. So I turn around, and I look, and I'm like, holy smokes. Nice big scrape, really tall, up where the licking branches were. Obviously, had to have been a fairly good-sized body deer just to reach the licking branches. But then I'm getting enamored with the size of the hoof print in the scrape, so I'm putting my hand in there, and guys, the deer's track was wider than 4 of my fingers put together where it was making the scrape. So I'm like taking pictures of my hand, like I can't believe the size of this freaking deer track. And I stand up, and you're now in front of me, 2 feet in front of me, mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, don't move. I hear something. And a squirrel was like to our left. And you're like, it's a squirrel. And I'm like, man, and in my mind, I'm like, okay. But then I'm like, man, that didn't sound like a squirrel. So I'm like, hang on. And I listen again, and then I look over your right shoulder. You're looking over here at the squirrel. I'm looking at the squirrel. I look over your right shoulder, and there's 2 deer coming up out of the bottom right at us, guys. And I mean right at us. And I'm like, Brandon, there's 2 deer coming right at us. And I'm like, the first one's a young doe. I'm like, let that one go. The one behind it's a little bit bigger. So I'm thinking Brandon's first, if he wants to take this shot, because I'm not telling him what to shoot, he can shoot whatever he wants, but I'm thinking his first deer kill with a muzzle, or period.
Yeah.
But his first deer kill in Ohio, his first experience actually taking a deer with a gun even, is going to happen. And it's going to happen at like 8 yards because these deer are coming right at us. And there's this freaking stupid buckthorn tree that's like, I don't know, 16, 18 inches in diameter.
Bigger than a basketball, that's for sure.
Like 6 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's like blocking your view. Like you saw the deer
come up,
but then they got behind that tree because they're coming basically right at the tree, and now you can't see them. But I'm just off to your side, looking over your right shoulder, and I'm watching them coming right at us. And I'm like, don't move, don't shoot the first one. It's a little doe. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, they're bucks. And guys, this is why today will always be one of the most memorable hunts to me. I've said it before. I've been doing this for 30 years. I love to hunt. I still get fired up under certain circumstances, but I have not gotten fired up over a spike in a 3-point in like 28 years. And I started shaking. Like my hands were going, my heart's thumping. I'm like, dude, it's going to freaking happen. And he's going to shoot this deer right freaking here. I mean, right in front of us. And they're coming. But Brandon can't see him anymore because of that stupid buckthorn tree. And he's like, where are they at? I'm like, they're right there. And I think he thought that I was like, I think you thought I was like, why aren't you shooting?
Like, take the shot,
Like, take the shot. Because from where I'm standing, I could have shot both of them 75 times. I mean, they were right there. At this point in time, they're 12 yards in front of us, coming right at us. The wind is beautiful. I mean, it's right in our face. They have no freaking clue we're there because the tree's blocking them. But then it got quiet, and you're like, where are they, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, what I did was, because like you said, it was quiet, and I knew we couldn't talk to each other because of how close they were. Yeah. So I knew that I was like, we can't make any sound. So the dead silence for so long was like, it was like whispering in my ear, like you being like, why aren't you taking a shot? Like, they're right there. Like, and I'm like, well, I can't see, but I can't say that. So what I did was like, I went to swing my hand to like show like
the trees on my way.
Yeah, and the moment I raised my hand like that, yeah.
So they spun 180 and they bailed. They took off running out of there. But that was awesome. I mean, those deer were
spitting distance.
I mean, right there.
Yeah, spitting distance. It was really that close. It was a legendary for sure.
It was very, very cool. So we worked our way down out of that bottom, or we worked our way down that ridge point, down into that bottom. And as soon as we got to the bottom,
that was when we saw those deer in that kind of like what you like buck haven.
Yeah, like a buck nest is what it reminded me of. Yeah. If anybody's ever watched THP, I think they were out in Iowa and they found that, what they call the buck nest. And this whole area just reminded me of what that looked like. So we're just kind of looking at that and kind of admiring, like, man, this is really good bedding habitat. There's browse down there. Like, there could have been 500 deer in there, and you'd be lucky to see any of them unless they were, moving.
Yeah.
And then we're watching that, and then all of a sudden, a buck jumps up 80 yards in front of us, down in that bottom, doesn't snort, doesn't make a noise, just turns and runs directly away from us. And I don't know how big it was, but I could hear the antlers. You could hear them because you were like, oh, that's what that noise was. Because you could hear the rack like smacking trees as this thing was running out of here. You could hear that. If you know what the sound of an antler hitting a piece of wood sounds like, I mean, that's exactly what it was doing. So you could just hear it. Do. So that one disappears. And then it's not even 2 seconds later, and Brandon's like, deer. And I look, and he's got his scope up, and he's on them, but, I mean, there was no shot there.
Way off, yeah.
They were probably 100 yards away, but no way you could shoot. Just way too thick in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was wide open,
sure,
definitely would have had an opportunity to shoot. But so bumped 3 more up out of there. And then by this time, I think it's like almost 4 o'clock, 3:30, something like that. So we decided, okay, we worked all the way up this ridge, then we came all the way down this point. Let's loop around, let's follow this bottom out, and we'll basically go back out until we meet where we came in, and then we'll go out. And that's what we did. So we worked our way out. We didn't see any more deer after that, right?
Not after we hit. Once we got to the river, we didn't see any deer.
Yeah.
But
the deer sign though.
Yeah.
All through there.
Yeah, like you know,
fresh monster tracks. Some of the most beat down deer trails I've seen anywhere.
And again, not just one, not just two, like several, everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
I mean, it was, so it was very deceiving in the sense of like put yourself, if you're a beginner hunter or still, in your first few years of learning true woodsmanship and all that stuff. It was one of those things where it was deceiving, because it was like you didn't know the spot because everywhere seemed like the spot.
And like I said to you, like that would even be tough for me. Like going in there, like I always go back to bow hunting because I love all kinds of hunting, but bow hunting is my passion. So if I was to have gone in there with a bow, I can't do Zach from THP where he just gets on the ground with his bow and just go. I'm not that guy. I just can't do it. I can't be that quiet. I try to be as quiet as I can, but I'm not as good at that stuff as he is. But because of how much sign there was, how many insanely well-used fresh trails there were, like I said, it was like paralysis by analysis. I would have had a hard time with my bow in there. Like, I probably just would have stopped at the first really good sign I found.
Sure.
But I'm so glad we were there with guns. And I learned something from today. And I've been coming down here for, like I said, 8 years. And oftentimes what I do is I go in, I find a spot, and I basically like ride or die. Like, I'm going to lock in here. I can see a lot. I try to get myself set up with a gun where I can see as much as I can. And if I feel confident in the spot, I'll just set up and it's ride or die until the end of season. And I'll see deer, throughout the course of the short season, the 5-day season. I'll see, anywhere from 4 to 8 deer sitting in one tree, daylight to dark, for 5 days. Now, I might see a really good buck. I might see does. I might see small bucks. But what I learned, at least what I'm going to take out of this going forward, and we're going to put it to the test again tomorrow because, guys, we barely scratched the surface
of that area
today. I mean, we put in 2.86 miles, if I remember correctly. I think it was 2.86 miles is what we put in.
Wow. Felt like more.
Yeah, it did feel like more. And it took us 8 hours.
Yeah.
But of course, when every freaking 5 feet you take a step, you're seeing another deer.
Yeah, we're getting blown at.
And we're getting blown at. What I learned is when I come down here, I think I'm going to be far more aggressive than I have been in previous years. Mm. I don't think I'll bring my saddle with me, but the odds of it going in the woods with me, unless I find like just the X on the X where it's just going to be nonstop activity, I'm just going to keep moving until I find deer.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of took out of today. Because even with those deer blowing at us, and like I said, as we were driving back, I was thinking back to my small parcel, like in my home property. I've got 60 acres. If it's a cold day and a deer blows at me, every deer on my 60 acres, every deer on my neighbor's property hear that. And I'm like, well, this night's screwed. Like, might as well just pack it up. Not the case when you're dealing with this kind of terrain.
No, I mean, not at all. We're this kind of deer. I'm trying to understand. I'm still trying to piece together exactly if it's the deer or if it's the terrain or what it is. But yeah, I mean,
I think, not to interrupt you, but I think these deer, especially in this kind of terrain, probably blow more than we think they do, and not just at humans. I think deer are paranoid to begin with. But they are very protected in these ridges, and if they hear something that's a little different sounding than what they're typically hearing, I think their first instinct is just to blow. They don't run; they just blow, and then they just stand there forever. And odds are, if we would have just like sat down on our butts after they blew, and just sat there all night, odds are they probably would have just been like, I guess it was nothing, and they'd probably laid right back down.
Right.
The only reason they finally took off running is because we kept pushing.
Right.
But I'm glad we kept pushing because we just kept getting into more and more deer. What I kind of expected to happen that didn't happen is when we did blow these deer and they would not just blow at us, but they would take off running, I kind of expected a domino effect throughout that ridge. Like, these deer are going to take off running this direction. There's going to be a deer bedded over here. It's going to see these deer run off. It's going to hop up, and it's going to create a chain reaction along this ridge. But that didn't happen.
No.
Yeah,
no. So, and I don't, again, in Wisconsin, I feel like that wouldn't happen. I have one doe blow at me on the edge of a field, and like everything scurries out of there. So I don't know. I'd say maybe, again, location wise, or the deer or the ridges, but yeah, I mean, in Wisconsin, I just feel like you could not do what we did today.
Well, today was an awesome day, dude. It really was. And I didn't have my gun with me. I could go doe hunting, but I just really wanted to go in there. And like I said, driving back home, I was like, the best part of today for me is I felt like I was 15, 16 years old again with that just insane eagerness and excitement to be out there, but with the knowledge I've gained since I was 16 years old of understanding how deer are going to use this. So I had that excitement of a child, but the knowledge that I've gained since then, and it just carried throughout the whole day. And it was so freaking cool to be like, we got to slow down because there's going to be deer. Like, I feel like there's deer close. And then like 20 feet later,
2 steps, yeah.
it was either a blow or and it's like, dude, this is just awesome. So,
Yeah.
I hope you had a fun day.
Oh,
I had an absolute blast.
man.
We're going to go at it again tomorrow, but we're going to come in from the opposite direction, hopefully. I mean, we don't know if we even can. It looks like we can.
Yeah.
On a map anyway. So we're going to give it a shot. And I think we'll be just as aggressive as we were today.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
And just push through and, see what happens. So I guess the moral of the story is ultimately, at the end of the day today, as it stands, you legitimately had opportunities at a total of 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of the approximately 25 deer today we saw, you had an opportunity to shoot had you wanted to. Like those first 9 does, you had your pick of the run of any of them.
Yeah.
Those 2 bucks, like literally, had you been standing where I was and I standing where you were,
right,
either one of them were toast.
For sure. Or again, if I had to just, just waited, like instead of trying to convey to you what I was dealing with, I should have just, like I said, but either way, again, you learn.
It was I learned some stuff today. I mean, I'm excited to come back in here. I kept telling you, like, as we're working through this, I'm like, I think I'm coming back in November. I really want to hunt this in November. So, had a blast. Tomorrow's going to be a fun day. We still got tomorrow, Wednesday.
I know.
And really Thursday morning if we want it. So, we've got time. In this area that we're in, I think we can make something happen. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I haven't checked the weather yet. I'm not quite sure what the weather is for tomorrow. I think it's virtually the same as it was today. So, and it's unseasonably warm again. I mean, it was cold last week. Prior to that, it was in the upper 60s. And then today, I think, got up to about 54, 55. And I think tomorrow's going to be more of the same. But even to that effect, not every deer we saw was just laying down and we bumped it. I mean, about half the deer we saw were bedded and the other half were on their feet. Moving. Yeah. So I think tomorrow could be similar. So you got anything else you wanna tell the folks before we call it a night?
No, happy to be on the podcast or
hey,
show,
cheers.
Whatever you want to call it.
I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you came on this trip. It was a good time, for sure.
Happy to be here. I'm sure we'll be sending an update on Facebook of the dead deer that I shoot tomorrow. So
I hope
see
so.
What happens.
So, I guess my only parting words of wisdom is I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you're gonna shoot a deer, don't make excuses for not my biggest deer. No, this is not my biggest deer by any means. I probably wouldn't shoot this deer 99 times out of 100, but I don't feel bad for it. I'm not apologetic for shooting that deer. I was fired up. When I walked up to it, I was a little bit surprised, more confused than anything, because I'm like, the deer I just shot just ran away, but there's a dead deer laying right there. So make that make sense. So, things happen. I mean, it is what it is. I was blessed. We got that thing hung up. We got it quartered up tonight. It's on ice. You got to eat some inner tenderloins,
Very good.
which are quite tasty.
Yes.
We already smashed those. Those are gone. But we broke that deer down, and tomorrow's a new day, and we're going to go get after it. So it is 10:30 p.m. Monday night, which is January 5th, right? Yeah, January 5th. It is 10:33 p.m. We're going to get up and go hunting in the morning. I still have to edit this podcast and try to upload it. So with that, I think we'll call it a night. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks, Brandon, again for joining.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll frickin' rock it out tomorrow. And hopefully when I do my back-in studio recap, full disclosure, if you shoot one tomorrow, we're definitely making a video, and we'll be doing some bragging on that for sure. But yeah, stay tuned for part 3, which will be kind of the culmination of the rest of the week. That'll be back in studio, and then that's unfortunately the end
of the season
of my whitetail season. You're done with Wisconsin, right?
Too, yeah, ends January 6th.
Yeah, so then it's on to ice fishing, and then for me it's on to prepping property, and I don't know. We'll find plenty of stuff to talk about on the podcast, but I am definitely a little bummed out that whitetail season is coming to an end. A little bummed, but also a little excited because I'm already, gears are already turning for next year, and I'm excited to work my property, and I'm already game planning for next year for coming back here.
But what a great end of the season,
100%, man.
Oh man,
This has been a struggle bus season for me. I had built this season up so much in my head because this was my 30th year, and I was like, I'm going. This is just going to be it. 30th year, I'm popping champagne bottles. Like, I'm tagging out in Michigan. I'm tagging out in Indiana. I'm tagging out in Ohio. I might go out west this year. And then my tendon pops in my arm, and it's like, oh, I guess I'm not going to do any of that. But then I got back into it quicker than the doc thought I was. But I just struggle bust, man. Like, I just felt like I wasn't on my game. And I think it's just because usually I'm in the woods so much that things just start clicking and becoming just second nature to me. I don't even have to think about certain things. And this year I found myself thinking a lot more. But I definitely felt like I kind of honed in just really yesterday and today. Like, it just all kind of came back to me. So I had a blast. So thanks again.
And still Fireman carried a deer with
I did.
The shoulder and arm. So
my neck is paying for it, and my glutes are paying for it today. But yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. It's been fun. We'll recap Ohio when I get back to the studio. Hopefully we put something out on social media celebrating another deer either tomorrow or Wednesday. The merchandise, Brandon's rocking a sweatshirt. I'm rocking a sweatshirt. It is coming along. I've really only got the one design set up right now.
Very comfortable.
Yeah. More will be coming. Thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. This is Wild Spirits Outdoors. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild Spirits Outdoors. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, follow, and share wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the tribe and keep on chasing the wild. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Spirits Outdoors, and also on YouTube at Wild Spirits Pod. You can also head over to www.wildspiritsoutdoors.com for more content. Until next time, chase the wild, feel the spirit.